When did you realize someone was all bark and no bite? My boss, Pete, had everyone terrified. He'd slam doors, throw folders, and scream until veins popped on his forehead. New hires lasted weeks, not months. Everyone whispered warnings my first day. Never question Pete's decisions. Always look busy when he walks by. Don't make eye contact during his tantrums. Keep tissues handy for the criers. The last one wasn't a joke. Melissa from accounting had been reduced to tears in the middle of the office 3 times last quarter. For 6 months, I watched coworkers tremble when he entered the room. People would suddenly find urgent reasons to use the bathroom or make calls when his heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. I'd shrink at my desk, just like everyone else, hastily closing YouTube or minimizing social media tabs even during lunch breaks. His reputation was bulletproof, a results-driven manager who doesn't tolerate mediocrity, according to HR's glossy description. Then came the Wilson account presentation, our biggest potential client, worth nearly 7 figures annually. Pete had been ranting for weeks about how critical it was, how careers would be made or broken on this deal. He'd rejected my presentation draft 4 times, each time with more creative insults about my intelligence and professional capabilities. 10 minutes before the meeting, as I was reviewing my slides one final time, my computer froze. Then the blue screen of death appeared. When I rebooted, the presentation file was corrupted. All 3 backup locations showed the same error. My hands shook as I called a T, but they couldn't remotely fix it in time. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I watched the clock tick down. When Pete marched in, his face was already red, tie slightly askew from his last office rampage. He glanced at my blank screen, then at my pale face, and I knew I was finished. The presentation is gone, I said, voice barely above a whisper. System crashed. It can't recover it in time. He exploded exactly as expected, cursing, pounding my desk with his fist, threatening to fire me on the spot. His spittle landed on my keyboard as he towered over me, listing all the ways I'd ruined everything. Coworkers stared at their screens, pretending not to notice while shooting me sympathetic glances when Pete looked away. 6 months of work, he shouted, down the drain because you can't handle basic technology? This is why we can't have incompetent people on critical projects. I was mentally updating my resume when the conference room door opened. The Wilson executives, all 5 of them in immaculate suits with expectant expressions, were standing there, watching Pete's meltdown through the glass wall. Our receptionist had brought them in early. Pete froze completely. He stammered, I was just... The CEO of Wilson raised an eyebrow. Is there a problem with today's meeting? Pete shrunk like a deflating balloon. His shoulders hunched, his voice dropped an octave, and he actually took a step back. No, sir, just a technical difficulty. Nothing serious. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and grabbed my notepad. I can present without slides. I know the numbers by heart, and I've brought printed copies of the key visuals. The Wilson CEO nodded approvingly while Pete stared at me. As I walked to the conference room, I glanced back to see Pete, mouth slightly open, completely powerless. He quietly took a seat in the corner of the room and didn't speak a single word during my presentation. I nailed it. The Wilson team signed the contract that afternoon. Pete avoided me for weeks afterward, and when we did speak, his voice was surprisingly soft. He never yelled at me again, and gradually, his tantrums throughout the office became less frequent.